Hello, everyone. This is PC0813 giving you guys a quick Bitcoin update from Pro Traders Lounge. Hope you guys have had a great week thus far and are ready to dive into the high time frame charts. So let's go ahead and get going. So what has happened? Last time we spoke, we were forming a range down here, buying the bottom of it. Now, we never really got a rejection from our high time frame SR level. We did the first time, obviously, but the second time we blasted right through it. At the lounge, we were looking for a potential fake out scenario in the lower mid 19Ks. We got one scalp long successful, one scalp long lost. It wound up to break even, honestly. And once it broke through those mid 19Ks, we were keen enough not to fight the move. Why fight an impulsive trending move instead of just running alongside it? So we do have our impulse that has brought us up to where we are now. And as you can see, it has broken back into this historical high time frame range. We also had another historical high time frame range below us that we were looking for if we got it. Have not gotten that opportunity to buy it yet. Doesn't mean it won't come later in the year or perhaps next year. I'm keeping this level on here. But as range traders, we're always looking for a back test of a previous range. Didn't get it, so we're back in our old range. And that's where we're going to go ahead and start examining what brought us up here, what we're looking for next. Real quick, guys, if you want to see more of these update videos, please make sure to give us a quick like, maybe throw a comment in there. We always love your feedback, like to know that what we're offering is what you guys are looking for. So anyhow, we need to recognize the current environment. Current environment is a trending high time frame impulse, and we are currently in a mini range within that impulse. Now, what's interesting about the mini range is the location. We have two historical volume gaps from these uncleared impulses. They're cleared now. They were uncleared when we were coming up into them at the time. They have remained respected throughout this mini range. Therefore, I'm keeping them on my charts until they break. We have, again, just two high time frame impulse volume gaps that have effectively called the highs and lows, support and resistance of this local range. Yesterday's price action, as quick as it may have been, was nothing more than a simple rotation of the value area. That's all it really was. I was trying to let everyone in the lounge know, nothing to freak out about. We haven't really broken any areas of interest. No reason to chase anything, either weakness or strength. Now, what are we looking at from this mini range? We have to look at both the bullish and the bearish possibilities. We can't just fixate on one. Why? Well, we're in a high time frame upward move. So the safe bet is to go with the high time frame trend. And Bitcoin, when it gets into these impulsive moves, likes to get in a one-directional type phase where it comes up, sideways, up, sideways. It's not unrealistic to think we don't get up and sideways. Perfectly logical to think that. And I do know a lot of people are looking for a straight up move out of this mini range. I can't say that's off the table because Bitcoin would then be leaving people behind, making them long higher up. That is one potential scenario. We do have some longs running from our 22,500 impulse volume gap range lows. So if it were to take off, not the end of the world over here. But you notice how we've broken back into this range and we haven't really back tested any levels yet. If we're going to start breaking down from a range perspective, there's two general areas I would like to see tested. One would be the range midpoint. And we'll go over this in just a second, perhaps a little wick through, and then we make the impulsive move up before move more sideways. That is scenario number one. We're going to go into the details of that more so in just a minute. Scenario number two to the downside that not a lot of people are seeing is this high time frame SR zone. We broke through it. We've never back tested it. we could make a drop, get one of these up, back test the mini range, and then a sharp drop down. We could get a drop down to the mid 18Ks and still technically remain bullish. It's still technically possible to get that. And I don't think a lot of people would have that on their radar. I think if we get down to the mid 18Ks, especially if we knife into that level, I think a lot of people are going to be getting bearish, shorting, forgetting that it's the bottom of a high time frame range. So I am keeping that in mind. Now, looking at those levels a little more technically, let's get our drawing off here, move on over our charts. Examining the impulse volume of the impulse that brought us to where we are now. First off, I want to point out that you can see we're holding the value area high as resistance. We were doing the same thing when this was our high. This is when I was calling for this high to be taken out, based upon the fact that we were holding value area high as support. It is still holding as support at the moment, but the bounce that we've got off of it has been minimal. We perhaps are coming back into it to test it. I think another test would probably break it. That is speculative, though. We'll have to be on our toes and watching it when it happens. But getting into our levels, you notice that we have a nice inefficiency gap right here. And let's go ahead and draw out. If we were to clear that gap, we've tapped it a number of times, held as support. If we were to clear that gap, that brings us around to our high time frame range midpoint. Little wick, it would be a wick below. Not a clean tap, but a wick below. Of course, nothing's ever perfectly clean in this game, so we have to be ready for that. But it does make sense to bounce from that area. We come in there, we clear out the inefficiencies, perhaps tap this volume gap, perhaps not. We could just leave it there. We could essentially back test the top of this consolidation zone and then just take off, totally on the table. That is one scenario that I personally will be keeping an eye on. Now, the second level that we talked about, let's just go ahead and re-review. If we were to back test the high time frame range lows, you notice that we have another nice inefficiency pocket right where the range lows are. It makes sense, again, technically, not just from a range perspective, but from a volume inefficiency perspective. It would make sense to make a move down there to clear that inefficiency before making the rise. And then we have this high time frame internal trend line that we've been holding as support as well. Not a lot of people have been seeing this. And this came from our old range that we had earlier. It was a nice, clean, respected internal trend line. I love internal trend lines because no one else is looking at them. And as you can see, it's quite well respected. So I am kind of looking at this trend line, value area, high level, as a zone to hold if we want more upside. If we lose it, I have to think we're going to take minimum range lows, potentially clear the inefficiency pocket, or head down to the mid 18Ks. Above us, we have some yearly pivots. So even if we were to head down and maybe tap the channel midpoint, perhaps wick through it and head up, we do have some nice yearly pivots that our man Trader R has introduced us to. But the reason I like the location of these yearly pivots is where it lies in relation to our high time frame range. We have a range deviation right here. Pretty easy to see. Have our range, we deviated outside of it fairly cleanly, to be honest with you. I wouldn't mind if we get a deviation to the top side, right? I mean, it makes sense. A matching deviation, tap our yearly pivots, and then come back into the range. So with our monthly below and yearly above, I'm not saying this is the route, but it's a route I'm going to be prepared for, is that we come down into our monthly pivots, make the move up, maybe some sideways chop, into our yearly pivots, get our deviation. People are buying, they're buying heavy, we break back into the range. That's what I'm looking for to the upside. If we were to hold above these yearly pivots, then I have to think that the next area of resistance is going to be around 30K, essentially back testing this consolidation zone that we never have back tested from earlier. Honestly, we're mid-range right now, and there's a lot of different possibilities, so you really have to be on your toes and have multiple scenarios planned out. Personally, like I've said, I have a couple to the downside and a couple to the upside. Because if we do hold those yearly pivots, then we're holding above the range. At this point in time, I think that would be a deviation, but that can change once we get up there. What if we break through the range highs with a big increase in volume, get a back test of the range with a massive amount of shorts being trapped at these range highs and bounce, right? Then the data's changed and I can't necessarily rule out retesting this consolidation range right here. But as the data is lying right now, we are simply back in the old range, looking for a rotation. Now, whether that is straight up to rotate back down or straight up into pivots before we rotate back down, we have yet to see. We need to see which way we break out of this mini range. And I would highly advise you all to keep an eye on volume when we do this. So I know what I was telling lounge members when we were wicking through various times, we did not get any volume that was dictating we were breaking down hard from these levels. They're just wicks. Volume will point the way. If we get a high volume break of these levels, that's when I pay attention to them, not these low volume wicks that just suck people in. So anyhow, guys, that is what we are looking for at the lounge on Bitcoin. I am leaning towards getting a small move down into a larger move up. But as we've seen, there's a number of different possibilities. And when we're in the middle of a range, you got to be ready for all the possibilities. So again, if you guys like the video, hit the like button, leave us a comment. I mean, I'd love to hear some feedback on how we're doing. If you guys are getting any information from this that's useful. If you'd like, please feel to join us in Pro Traders Lounge. Be happy to answer any questions that you have. With that, I will leave you all. Have a wonderful week. Stay safe, protect your capital, and we will catch you with another update very soon. Take care.